Wow. Well, after a rocky beginning, here we are. Um, as you read in the promo, I'm not going to give you a whole bunch of scientific information about these guys. Well, it kind of is anyhow, but I'm going to introduce you to the slime molds that I know, some of them anyhow, and that are on the main big enough to see when you're walking in the woods. If you have, a mushroomer's eye, for example, and notice something when it's unusual. I came to slime molds through mushrooms, like I think everybody just about thought they were. Started my fungal inventories in 1996, and slime molds were just part of it because they were defaulted to fungi because nobody really knew that they were or they weren't. They just didn't know. So it's been discovered not that long ago that they actually belong in with the amoebas. They're little critters, and one of the ways that was explained that I heard that they're different than plants is that they go out and predate, and they actually do go out and hunt down bacteria. They'll hunt down their favorite fungi, so they're very mobile, which you also probably know if you watched any of the Slime Molds Can Solve a Maze shows. And yes, they can. They're pretty amazing. But I came to them because of how they look. They're these tiny, gorgeous little things that I often wish were 3 feet taller because they're so neat and they could grow in my garden. This is my garden. And this is my house. My Milo, my 15-year-old tomcat, and Ruffy and Maggie, my 2 cardigan corgis, who Ruffy will be 9 the end of May, and Maggie will be 8, and they have been my best companions in the house all the time. I've never, I was widowed almost 2 years ago, and these guys have saved my life, if you ask me. Can't recommend corgis highly enough, and if you have one, you need to. This is where I walk. I live on property that's a company subdivision, so we get building sites and a say in each other's business, but the compensation is we have about 70 acres at least of untouched land. This is a big floating cattail marsh here that we have a trail around. The dogs and I walk most days. A lot of my, don't do that. A lot of my slime molds are fir needle in them. Just there's Doug fir everywhere. It's the dominant tree. But it's a great thing for gauging the size. And if you got 7 of them on a Doug fir needle, they're really annoyingly little, but awfully cute. And at the end of the day, this is the view off my deck and out my kitchen window. And I'm very blessed to be here. I'm very much aware of that. Like I said, I came to slime molds as a mycologist, an amateur mycologist. This is Andy McKinnon a few years back. He's the one who brought the Myxomycetes book forward from the museum and is just a really nice man and a lot of fun to work with. We were doing a mushroom show here and everybody loved it so much. And everybody wanted to do it again. And my stipulation for the first one was, I'll do it, but I don't want to organize it. And I said that for the second one. And after the first people had organized the first one, they didn't really want to organize another one either. So that was the end of mushroom shows, but people do still bring me things from time to time. And I find my brain is having all my mushroom terms just dropping right out my ears as it gets filled up with slime molds. But I can still remember cystodermas and how super gorgeous they are. And just, yeah. So that's why I love mushrooms for their beauty. And slime molds are the same. I'm a naturalist by being raised that way. We were grew up in the foothills of the Twin Sisters, and all that was behind us was hills and mountains and rivers and creeks, and it was all ours to play in. And so my mom, my sister, and I were talking, and every one of us is happiest and feels best when we're outdoors. Out in the woods is good. Up on the alpine is the best. So so it's my home, and that makes it easier to spot things that are unusual. And I'm sure you guys have already spotted many of these Myxomycetes fruticulosus. They're called coral slime and something else. They kind of look like frosting. These ones grow in straight lines, and then these ones grow in, fancier ways. You can see the babies just popping up. There's one, and there's one, and then they're coming out there, and they're pretty amazing how they form. Sometimes you get orange ones, and with cool shapes to boot. However, they are all, according to the people in charge of the taxonomy, all the same thing. And these droopy guys are droopy, but they're fuzzy. But the reason that Myxomycetes are partly fuzzy is because they are unusual. They bear their seeds, spores, on the outside of their bodies. So this little stalk, and then the spore on top. And that's why they look kind of fuzzy. And I'm amazed every time I can look at a spore on the, I don't know if they're called basidia when they're on Myxomycetes, but because these spores are on the outside of their fruiting body, they also don't belong in the true Myxomycete class. But they're basically a one genus wonder, and there's a few other species in the tropics, but it's just pretty much Myxomycetes. But we include it because it's out in the woods and you'll see it, and it is a kind of slime mold. All the rest of the slimes produce spores inside of some sort of body. So another one that I figure everybody knows is the wolf's milk slime, Lycogalla epidendrum. When you get them really young, I was surprised at how pretty they are. And then, of course, you have to poke them every once in a while to see what they're doing in there. I don't know if that got poked by me. I don't think so. Anyhow, they mature. This pink toothpaste stuff is the seeds. The toothpaste gets thicker and more like toothpaste, and then basically like puffballs, and it blows away. Or sometimes it turns into dinner for fungus. There's quite a back and forth between fungus and slime molds for who eats who. They're probably pretty even. This is Fuligo septica, another one I thought you guys would know. Fuligo septica's got a few forms it can take. It all has this really gorgeous yellow plasmodium. The ones that I find in the woods are these yellow guys, purple dark spores underneath. The yellow eventually rubs off. Sometimes they're infected with the Nectaria purpurea, and then they look like they're purple, but you get up close and see, nope, they've just got tiny ascles all over them. This guy grew in my backyard and continued, well, I'm hoping he's continuing for the past 3 years, I think it is. He's come up at least twice a year with nice big fruitings. And it's also taxonomically described the same as this guy, which just makes me confused. This one lives in the woods, usually in the shady, dark woods. This one lives in my backyard in the heat of the sun and seems just fine with it. And there's a lot of things about slime molds we don't understand. And one of them is I don't understand how these two guys can be the same thing, but that's what the looking at the internal parts says. So this is the plasmodium, excuse me, that got me hooked on slimes. It was in 1996, so I'd just been barely starting doing my collecting. And I found these little white balls on my mushroom walk in our woods. And I went back the next day and they weren't there. And I looked all around. After being annoyed for a bit, I looked all around then and I couldn't find hide nor hair of them or anything that looked, like maybe it was a big white ball or a big pink ball. But I did find chocolate tube slime looking things. And so I went home and consulted my trusty Audubon mushroom guide because that was what I had at the time. And sure enough, learned that those little white balls were baby Stemonitis, chocolate tube slime. So this is another chocolate tube slime, Stemonitis splendens, both same species, just they can have yellow plasmodium and they can have white plasmodium. And I have no idea why, and I'll bet nobody else knows why either. I found this near my house on May 26th at 1 p.m. You can see a bug eating it there. So you can see it's not real big. This is this is a sciencey word here. It's a hypothallus, and all it means is it goes underneath the slime molds and connects them all. It stays with them. At this stage of the game, these guys are really tender. And once you damage it, if it gets damaged, it very rarely repairs itself. It might be able to hang on, but it's not going to be pretty again. And you should know it might look slimy, but slimes aren't slimy. They just feel wet. And I just feel bad because I murdered them when I do stuff like that. This is a little springtail having lunch. You can see the slimes are starting to get some legs. This is 3 hours later at 4 in the afternoon. from when I first saw them. And now they're starting to separate from each other. And they're growing they're black. They'll end up, the black leg is a shiny, hard leg. So it's pretty dominant. But I mean, all things considered, I just think they're really super cool and really amazing. And they're still doing all this stuff with only one cell, gazillions of nuclei, but only one cell. So the next morning I went back to visit my white balls, and this is what I found. And it's not ready yet. When it's wet looking, and you touch it, you'll break it. But by 5 in the evening, it was starting to dry out pretty good. And by the next morning, you could see they're starting to separate. So 2 days from little white balls to slime molds. And this underneath where these stems are attached, that's that hypothallus, the thing that is under all of these stemonitis. Not all genuses have that. When you blow the spores out of a stemonitis and they become the tube or the feather, depending on your common name bent, there's this amazing capillicium network that was formed while the spores were forming to support those spores and give them a way to easily disperse. And the nets are fragile. They're fabulous. Every species has a different net, and every genus has a different kind of net or non-net. So there's a lot of microscope time if you want to really get serious about these ties, because they're too small to work with otherwise, especially with 73-year-old eyes. This is our Arceria ferruginea, and sometimes we get very pretty little pink balls. And you can see up here all this watery stuff. This is more plasmodium, and it's still putting up little babies. This turns into a very pretty thing. All those little balls get little legs, and wrong way. And then they start to change color. Generally speaking, when they're shiny like that, they're wet, and if you touch them, they'll be damaged. At this stage, they're a little tougher. They're starting to dry out, starting to come to their color that they're going to be. And then in the end, they become these guys. And you can see the spores are starting to let go. They're fuzzing out. These are spores that get stuck and it doesn't happen. But after that, this is what you get. These are those bushy things have expended most of their spores. They've left the little cups that they're in, all except that they're hooked on strongly by one thing in the middle. This is an older version of the same guys. Their little cups have degraded and they've lost their color. If you collect them, they'll eventually go this color also. And then up here you have some older ones and some younger ones. So it was a very busy log. This is Bohemia utricularis, and it's probably put on the biggest fruiting shows I've seen. We had one in particular that this blog was on the trail of that just went massive. Utricularis likes to eat fungi. These are some sort of polypore. It loves phlebia, and it likes the winter. So I've watched it in Januaries where we've had snow on the ground and it's froze every day, all day long. I've watched it at times when it thaws and freezes, and it might do things slower, but it just keeps on doing. Oh, it's slime molds are like mailmen, I guess. This is the Bohemia swarming towards, looking for its favorite food, sending out all these arms to look and see. And this is it swarming its Phlebia radiata, which is this fungus up here, and it used to be underneath this guy. So if there isn't a bunch of Phlebia radiata, then I don't see a bunch of utricularia. It seems to be very dependent upon that singular food having a good year for it to have a good year. This is what it looks like when it starts to mature up into its final form. Just little clumps of grapes. They're called lichen 2. Wrong way. And this is what these little grapes look like closer up. They're I just think they're spectacular. They hang on those yellow golden threads. Remember, it could be freezing cold out, but they're just trucking along. Eventually they get to here and they're maturing. They go through a dark brown. From the orange, they go to dark brown, and then they go to black. And the reason they're changing those colors is because that's the colors that the spores end up. The white that comes in is they use lime in forming their shell and in forming the internal body of each grape. And when they're all done, this is what they look like. And I just think they're spectacular. But I've been a sucker for iridescence and color all my life. So, and they're big enough to see with the naked eye. On this picture, you can see the lime formed inside. There's very advanced structures in there. They do an amazing job of being who they are. And apparently they do such an amazing job that they have been around for I think it's millions of years, and they haven't needed to evolve because I guess they haven't needed to. So they found fossils in amber, and they're the same as what we have today. This is going a little backwards for me. Instead of finding Plasmodium and seeing what it grows up to, I found these things and I had to try and figure out what they were. I'm guessing Ryan could probably figure it out. I just thought they looked like a picture that should have Danny Elfman music in the back with it. This is how big they are. This is a centimeter. So super tiny little buggers, but really, I don't know. I just always liked them and was on the hunt. So here we are. Anerthema papillae on them. Their claim to fame is they have this little button in the middle. I don't think anybody else has one. I quite like that. So they're a very small genus. These guys have been attacked by mice in the night. It looks like it's the little tooth marks. Another thing that likes to eat these guys. Sometimes they have the most amazing blue cast to them. This is looking straight down on that little button. These are all spores around it. And this is looking at the stem. This is the cap, that button. And then all these messy things are the capitolicium in there that was made with the spores to enhance spore dispersal. And here they are, a little bit younger and looking just perfect, if you ask me. And then this is when they're almost babies. You see a little one there, but they have their dimple all the way along. So very small and very black most of the time, but pretty cool. This is a Lamproderma, columbinum, and it's this log is right across the road from where my favorite log is. And we'll talk more about that log later. So I always looked at it just in case. And one day there were these little white guys on it. So I thought, cool, and kept coming back to it. And this is what the little white guys were like. And they're all growing stems inside of there. 24 hours later, not doing much. They're just turned browny. 4 wet, cold November days later, and they look like this. Those guys are mature. Some of them are almost mature, but they're looking good. And this is what they look like when I collected them. This is what slime molds do. So many of them is iridescence and amazing colors. But at the problem of being really tiny. But you know, that's too big for life size. But that's all out there in our woods. I just wish it was a little bigger so I could see it a lot more. This is another common one of ours, and it can grow in the heat of the summer, and it can grow in terrible winter, freezing and snow, and still survive. Metatrichia floriformis, and it can come out. It comes out black usually, and then it starts to elongate and have these very sturdy stem stalks, and then the roundish heads. And when they're mature, they look like this. They break open, and they're a mass of all these fibers. And it's nice to have ones that are regularly around. But I don't know if you would call them a snow melt thing or a summer or a winter when they do both. It's my dogs are growling. This is Comatrica nigra, and I think Comatricas are one of our cutest slime molds, maybe because they're little and kind of succinct. They strangely enough start out as these guys. They start out as tiny white blobs and grow up into these guys, and then they become these brown guys, and eventually these black guys. And you can see more of them up here. They're very little, If you're lucky, you can carefully blow out the spores. Often when I'm blowing out spores, I blow away the little thing as well and have to start over. So if you're ever getting into collecting Myxos, which I recommend, try and collect enough so that you have some to keep and a bunch to work on as well. Because, I can wreck a slide in 5 minutes, and I want to be able to get another specimen and keep working. In the eternal dance between fungus and slime molds, you've got fungus there eating the guys that didn't make it, I'd say. These guys were out in the spring, I think it was, in the Lions woodlot. This is my best log ever. This was my best log ever. It looks like this now. There's no log there, sadly. And it was an amazing log. And for reasons that I'm not sure, in fact, I bet nobody knows why, there are certain logs that produce and produce and produce. They'll have multiple fruitings of the same thing. Often they will have multiple fruitings of multiple things all at the same time, and often year after year. So it's like I'm going to work, hon, and I just have to go to the log for half a day, right? So when your log disappears and rots into the ground, in 2017, it could stand across there. In 2021, it's gone, and I don't have another log yet. So that's a very sad thing. But yeah, I'll bet you, I know Tyson's got a log. I bet Ryan probably has logs too. One of the things they grew on that log were these guys, Cribaria cancellata, Japanese lantern slime. They come out black or they'll come out this reddy color. They eventually end up looking like this as they're maturing. They keep these lines, and there are little cross lines across each vein that I don't think you can see. And when it's done, the end product really does look reminiscent of a Japanese lantern hanging there. And these are not the best pictures they're through my microscope. Back when I didn't have as good of equipment. But this whole log, and you're not seeing all of it there, was covered with these things, just totally covered. And I haven't seen them for a long time. But it helps when they do these mass fruitings because they're so much easier to cite. Oh my goodness. So speaking the mushroomers, I can say, if you can't eat them, what good are they? Aside from enjoying their obvious beauty, these are young ones of my first slide. These guys, they turn into this, and this, and this, and this, all from my woods, so I think that's enough. But they do more. Bugs like them. Bugs like them a lot. This guy, I don't know who this is, showed up on a slide when I was looking at spores. And so then I spent quite a while examining the interesting bug, thinking that's the front. And maybe we got a mite, but I I kind of don't dabble in bugs enough to know. Little beetles, lots and lots of little beetles in slime mold world. These little guys, I don't know what they were eating, but they had these long sweepers and they just swept the air in front of them, and you could see their little mouth parts were nibbling, but I never did learn how that anatomy works. These are pill bugs, those roly-poly guys, at least some of them, in ripe slime molds. Bugs often go for slime molds that are immature, just about mature, but not gone to fluff and dust. It's a better time to eat it when it's more like paste. Red mice, which generally look pretty cute when I encounter them in the wild, but it looks anything but cute on the page up here. Springtail, however, still manages to look cute even though he's pointing his bum at us. A lot of springtails in this work, just like with mushrooms. Slugs like them a lot. This is a slug on a single blade of grass. He's in my backyard. He's so young, he's almost translucent. And he was going down there to eat on my backyard's Fuligo septica, but he got annoyed with me taking his picture, and he's turning around now and leaving. These are maggots. Maggots in a reticularia, and they're just happy as can be. And they're still ugly though, but they are important, and they'll come back later. A lot of these guys, millipede or centipede guys, they're little enough so that when you look at them close up, they're almost translucent. So they're not as creepy when they're that size. And then more little beetles. On May 26th, I was out for my hike. This is the trail that I walk with the dogs. This is my alder area. Swamp is out in front of us there. So I've got some dead alder here, and it started growing a reticularia is what I figured. And you can see by the size, that's the log, and that's the piece on the log. So I walk by it nearly every day, and I check in. Got to the point where even if I wasn't going to check in when we're out for a walk, my dogs stop there and wait for me because they think I'm going to be a while. Anyhow, May 28th doesn't look much different. May 26th, starting to dry out, which is a sign of maturing, lightening up a bit. May 31st, something's been eating it, and it's looking kind of messy. June 6th, I go back, and it's a whole new thing. And it turns out it's a larval nursery home for fungal gnats. And in each one of these, there was a gnat. Well, it wasn't a gnat yet. There was one of those larval. And somehow, after all that disorder that was in the with the maggots, they made this incredibly tidy nursery and a lot of things. Some of them didn't hatch. You could see their little lid didn't come off, but it's a really successful strategy. I was pretty impressed and fun to watch. And this is who came out. This is the fungal gnat. And spectacularly beautiful. That's what their wing really looks like. They're a little bit furry and they're a little bit spiky, but their only job is to mate, so they don't have any mouth parts. And one day, while I was down taking pictures of these guys, there were all these stupid little bugs in the way. And I got halfway through that sentence. What are all these stupid little, and then oh, that's the fungal gnats, isn't it? They're all hatching out of that nursery. So sure enough, and they all look like that. It's almost too bad we couldn't see those wings. They're pretty. And this is the gross alert. This is those grubs that the maggots have somehow aligned themselves into that amazing structure. Although these guys, I don't know what they're going to do, because this was built on a vertical spot and it was starting to slough away. So they might be bird food. Okay, so these are slime molds, definitely prettier without maggots. And they are. This is a Narceria. These are Craberias, or they form these great, kind of like bird nests. They have a solid bottom and then a net over the top of them. That's going to be a fuligo, I think, or a stemonitis, chocolate tube slime. I don't know what these guys are going to be. I could guess, but wouldn't be much point. This is whoops, stop it. This is a Physarum. Physarum is how one expert says it. I think they're gorgeous. They're once again probably a couple millimeters high, but easier to spot because you know from walking in the woods that there's not supposed to be a bunch of yellow things sticking on a log that little. And this is the beginning of a Cabraria, like these guys. Only his leg wasn't strong enough to hold up the top. But what you're seeing, those little dark parts, are the part of the net that is being formed. Yeah. These are also just more pretty ones. And they are. That's why I love slime molds. Well, one of the reasons I love slime molds. How could you not like it when you go for a walk in the woods and find these things, eh? I learned about this darn thing, Myxomycetes typhina. It's very recently that I discovered there was a genus Myxomycetes. These guys showed up here about 5 years ago, like they were refugees from somewhere, and they held up for 100 years and then they came. It was just crazy. I'd never seen them before, and all of a sudden they were everywhere, fruiting with everything. This is a knot hole in a piece of wood. This is all the typhina here, Myxomycetes typhina. And this is a stemonitis growing in it. And then these are all the new, whichever it's going to be, stemonitis or Myxomycetes, because they both start out as little yellow legs. And this is what a Myxomycetes looks like when it's growing its legs. They're a cool mushroom, especially how I was introduced to them, which was on logs like this, right? Just all this stuff is this little slime mold. And then you can see more of it on the sticks down here. It was a remarkable year, and it was a lot of This is a gentle reminder that just like people, slime molds aren't always all alike, even if they're in the same species. This is Arceria ovulata, and doesn't it look pretty? And then it grew up and it turned into this, and then eventually down here like these guys. This also is Arceria ovulata. This hot mess that looks like somebody got the blender into it, but it made a hot mess of sporing things down there, so it worked. I don't know why it turned into that. Maybe something came walking through, or a slug ate half of it. But also in the same species, you can find, I was going to say really tall and really short. You can find quite a discrepancy in the heights, and some of them look like they shouldn't belong together at all. But remember, people, lots of people are taller and shorter than each other, and they're still people. So this is why we need microscopes. And this is a little bit of information here. Because if you really want to get into slime molds and know their names, then you need to get into microscopy, and you need to be able to measure at least to 1,000 times. But you know, there's a lot of beauty in these things without having to know their name, or even needing to know it's an Arceria, right? It could just be a slime mold. You could take a picture of it and slap it on iNaturalist and done. I have a friend who writes the Bible of the polypore books, Jim Gins, and he said, it really doesn't matter what name you put on it if you keep a specimen, because then the specimen is the record. And if anybody cares to, they can look at that and decide if it's right or wrong. So that always gave me a little more freedom when it came to submitting my things to the herbarium, for instance. So yeah, a name is the last thing you need for just appreciation of the object. But if you do go in deep, they're pretty interesting. They have a lot of different kind of Capellicium, like this, spiky and lumpy, and that one, which is just barely bent, twisted. This is on a scanning electron microscope, and it's the same as this thing. This is my little friend, and is actually a real plasmodium of an Arceria Venus, maybe. This is the cutest thing, I think. This is from they changed the name on it. All right. Anyhow, it's a nice clear indicator that you have and it's not a Dacromyces palmatus. It's a fungus. Getting too late. This is from the Steminataceae group. This is a Steminitis net. And that's one of the things you look at a lot when you're trying to figure out who you got. These are more a different kind of Capellicium. Just lots to delve into. luckily, we have help with that delving. These are some photos of mine of a Arceria affinis, which is really pretty, kind of like cotton candy is how I think of these guys. But we're going to look at it under the electron microscope. Compliments of Dr. Elaine Humphreys. So these are the spores hanging on the side here. And this is that pretty red cup that you are seeing. And then all those cotton candy strands. These are those cotton candy strands closer. And there's quite intricate marking. They all have their own within genuses. There are styles. Most Trichia have a wound elater, whereas most Arceria has some sort of pokey bits on them. But yeah, that's only if you want to do the deep dive. And then I warn you, if you do, you're going to spend all your money on microscopes and books. It's a never ending. These are little beetles, and they were around. They're always around. And one day I was watching a picture of a slime mold in slow-mo, in full fast speed. I don't know why I saw it. And near the end of it, when the stemonitis are growing, I saw what I think is an incredible thing. So I'm going to try and make this work, because sometimes I can't get out of it once I get going. And then if you don't see me again, I'll log on. Okay, so I'm going to mute it because it's got horrible music. And that's who it's by. It does have some pretty, that's Bonhamia utricularis. And there. And then we have to slow it down. A little further. All right, so this is the stemonitis growing up. And what I want you to notice is the amount of bugs that go zipping through. And here comes the good bit. That beetle just clear cut that stemonitis, broke it into two, and then they're carrying it off. Another beetle is doing it right there. Escape. Okay, am I back? Hello?
You may have to start your screen show again.
Oh, it says you are sharing screen.
Right.
There. Got it? Did that do it?
You are sharing, but you're not in slideshow mode anymore.
No, now I'm gone.
So go back up to slideshow.
Yeah.
Go up to slideshow and say from current. I think should be from current slide.
Yeah. I've actually only got one slide left, so it doesn't matter.
Well, you can just advance it then. You want to.
Yeah, it's that's all there is to it. It's the one more that says goodbye. Oh, if we can make it do it.
I don't think you're sharing anymore, so you're fine.
No.
We can go on to questions.
Yes.
I tell you what, that was mesmerizing. Those are some really cool pictures. And that video at the end, that was what I loved was watching your face. I think you were as mesmerized as everybody else was.
I think those little, I can't understand why more people aren't excited about those little beetles doing that, because I think that they're tending them. They're not just there opportunely to pick. They're zipping around there and tending them, and things like stemonitis tend to be overrun by fungus very easily. So I suspect they were in there keeping the fungus and maybe the slugs that eat them away too. And yeah, regular old clear cut.
Very cool. Well, our first question is, and I'm not sure whether you might have said something at the beginning, but the biggest question is, now, I think slime molds used to be in fungi, but they've been removed.
Yeah, they were never really considered part of fungi.
Okay.
But no, they got stuck with fungus because nobody knew what to do with them. And so then eventually, it's not been all that long that it was discovered that they're actually little critters instead of, fungus are closer to plants. Yeah, so it's pretty amazing.
And I did do a quick little Google check, and it said that fungus actually, one of the main reasons they're not considered to be fungus is that all fungus exudes an enzyme and then absorb from the outside, whereas slime molds actually ingest their nutrients.
Yep. They go out and get food and eat it.
Right. Okay. Well, I think that's one of the things I had never known that until Google. Although, Google can give you lots of different answers to lots of different things. It may not be correct.
I know.
These days.
No, I remembered that one when I heard it or read it. They actually go out and predate, and I thought, okay, that's a lot different than most fungus.
Right, correct. So let me see if we have any other questions. And let me see more. And I know you actually invited a few friends into the into the Zoom meeting. I wonder if they have any questions. They can either turn on their audio and ask them if they want to, or put it in the chat or something. If you guys have any questions. So, this is a great question. If they ingest things, do they poop?
They don't seem to.
slime mold poop.
They don't poop, Pam, but
Here's-
some of them certainly store like waste products of some kind in the stock, I believe. I've never really been certain where that came from, but
Yeah.
they almost use it to like build the stock, I believe.
But yeah.
Okay. So so if they're not in the kingdom of fungi, do you know what kingdom they are in?
I
We
think
were
they
at.
were in
Amoebozoa.
Protista, but then that's
Yeah.
been split up into whatever it is now.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay. I assume they're doing.
Amoebozoa, aren't they?
Sorry, what was that, Pam?
Amoebozoa, isn't that what we have now?
I'm not sure. I don't keep up at that level.
I don't either. I just know they're not plants and they're not mushrooms, they're critters.
Okay, we do have one question from Mary. Do the transformations you show between baby and spore producers involve acquisition of new resources? That is reorganization or growth.
You say that again, please?
So do the transformations you show between baby and spore producer involve acquisition of new resources?
Yeah, that's what that's when they're out hunting to the way slime molds seem to work is that they in some ways are like fungus. They're invisible for a great deal of time. And then for whatever reason suits their fancy, they'll come and out of their substrate, whatever it is, and into the open and produce those fruiting stands of, yeah, and then what was the second half of that?
Something about that is reorganization or growth. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they it works pretty much just like it was in the pictures, right? They make sure that they have enough fuel before they start becoming a mature body.
Okay.
Yeah. So the critter getting bigger or just no, it's using the same it's transfer after it's done eating and starts to turn into myxocarps, it uses just the resources within its own cell to do all that stuff.
Interesting. That's just like, mushrooms. I'm just so fascinated by the fact that it's all, as far as fungus, you have mycelium in the ground, and it's that same mycelium that restructures itself into a mushroom.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same hypha that just kind of reforms itself. So really cool.
Nature's wild.
So, okay. I don't see a whole lot of more questions here. We've got a lot of compliments. A lot of people really enjoyed the presentation and thought your pictures were just absolutely beautiful.
Nice.
So,
phew. Oh, there's the chat.
So
that was only. Yeah. Well, I'm
you
glad
say that
they're
last
happy.
question
I'm glad
from
you
Mary?
told me. Huh?
Mary just asked another question. Does the bright coloration of certain molds, is that a warning mechanism? Like, don't eat me, I'm poisonous, or?
I don't think so.
So are slime molds, I don't know if you talked about that. Are slime molds poisonous or not poisonous? Or I guess you don't eat slime molds.
Yeah. Well, there is a little bit of slime mold eating going on.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right, good. In Mexico and in some of the Indian tribes back there, and in the Iroquois people, I think, Fuligoseptica was considered a food. So they would, in Mexico, it was called caca de luna, and they could fry it up just like it was scrambled eggs. But I have heard it said that there are no poisonous slime molds. There is really not much motivation to eat them because they're really small.
Right, right.
They
Okay.
look like chocolate, but they aren't. Yes.
Well, let me go ahead and start my video. So I don't think we have any other questions. We certainly enjoyed your presentation, and glad you were that Chris invited you. I did get a message from Chris that he actually had to go to work, and he apologizes for not being here. So anyway, I'm sure he'll be contacting you about honorarium or something later. So let me just say before we sign off a few announcements. We do have our speaker for next month will be Lauren Ray, and she's going to talk on lichens. We did have a couple of CMS member forays this week to go out and find Verpas and a few morels, although I think they actually found a chanterelle in a burn area. Unfortunately, it was a burned chanterelle that was perfectly preserved. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. So cool. So that was pretty cool. We also have our, as far as CMS members are concerned, we do have our voting coming up for our board of directors. So an email will go out on May 1st. And that's also when our invitation will go out for our final get together of the year, which is usually a morel grill out, which is a lot of fun that CMS members get to go to. So CMS members should be look into their email for on May 1st that will go out. So what do slime molds eat? We have one more question here. What do slime molds eat? Is it carbohydrates, amino acids? Is there
bacteria?
Is there anywhere in the world they are not found?
Antarctica, maybe.
Oh, okay. Although you never know.
Stevenson found them in Antarctica as well. They've been found on every continent.
Okay. Awesome. I'd like to go there and hunt. Yes. So what was the question?
Do they eat? What do slime molds eat?
What do they eat? Bacteria and whatever else is small enough that they can absorb, I guess. Fungus. They eat fungus. The Bohemia does anyhow.
Interesting.
Yeah, and they're so new to being studied that there's not a lot of answers for everything.
Right. We're still at all the question phases, just like, and probably even more so than fungi, than mushrooms. And most people, are more familiar with mushrooms and fungi. So that makes
at least they've heard of mushrooms.
The really neat thing about myxos is they occur in the soil pretty much everywhere in the world, and you'll get the same species throughout the entire world, but they seem to only fruit in certain parts. So when they do these cultures of like soil in the jungle and tropics and stuff, they'll find the same species that fruit in the temperate areas, but in the jungle they never do that. They just always remain as little mobile unicellular organisms in the soil biota. So they're really odd that way.
They're odd in a lot of ways, aren't they?
Oh, in every way you can imagine.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I don't think we have any other questions, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the live.